Southern Arizona has a long and colorful history. In fact, Tucson is the oldest continually inhabited city on the continent. At one time or another, the flags of Spain, Mexico, the Confederacy, and the U.S. have all flown over the region. But the period that I want to tell you about started around 1843, when a retired Army doctor, Colonel Lionel Hyde, decided to settle down in what was then a small, nameless frontier settlement. Accompanying him were his wife Paulette and their firstborn child, Jebediah. Within a year, the colonel had established himself in the settlement and had hung his shingle outside a large abandoned building. Gouliard Asylum is what he called the place. He claimed it was a hospital of alternative treatment, but no one ever knew exactly what that meant. As the years passed, rumors milled around town about the doctor, and there was speculation that he was conducting bizarre experiments with human corpses.
It's okay. It's okay.
And because young Jebediah always followed close on his father's heels, sometimes even sneaking into his lab at night, concern naturally grew for his well-being. Then one day, the inevitable happened.
Oh my! Little Jebediah was kidnapped by an inmate and killed?
No, he probably drank something poisonous in the lab.
Well, you're both wrong. Actually, little Jebediah witnessed something that evening that would change his life forever.
This serum should reverse the high-speed regenerative pattern of his brain.
Come on now, James. Everything is going to be fine. The doctor got the formula right this time.
No! What is that? Get away from me with that!
I love you.
Needless to say, the hospital closed its doors a week after Dr. Hyde's funeral, and Paulette and Jebediah left town as quickly and quietly as they could.
That's it?
That's the whole story of Nightfall?
No, not quite. After the doctor's death, the asylum sat empty for about 3 years. But a year or so after the war started, the Army rode in and took it over. They brought in Dr. Ichabod Lithestrom, supposedly to research the psychological impact of the war on veterans. But it was thought by many that Dr. Lithestром's research techniques were more physically and psychologically damaging to Gouliard's inmates than the war itself had been. Yep, the doctor ran his institution with an iron fist. They say that war is good for business, and in this case it was true. There were literally thousands of veterans available for study, so the town continued to grow and prosper around the asylum. While speculations about the nightly goings-on at Gouliard were widely discussed in private, the townspeople tended to be tolerant about things when the economy was good, so nobody got too curious. During this period of prosperity, the town was officially named Nightfall, and as is fitting for a growing western community, it got its own sheriff, one Randall Miller. But things started to change after Geronimo surrendered for the third and final time. As a number of patients at Gouliard dwindled, so did the town. But Lithestrom stood his post all those years like a dutiful civil servant, until the day the government came back to town with his new orders. Lithestrom was to close the asylum. The Army was sending him to a remote outpost in the Dakotas. A week later, Dr. Jebediah Hyde blew into town. And shortly after that, Dr. Lithestrom quietly vanished from the face of the earth. never to be heard from again. Of course, Jebediah quickly took over as the director of Gouliard, and within its thick, unforgiving walls, he had access to all the subjects he would ever need for his experiments with what he called metabolic reassembly. You and I would probably call it stealing body parts from the living and transplanting them onto the dead. Most folks thought that Lithistrom's disappearance was due to the fact that he was distraught over having to leave his post at Gouliard. But there was one man in Nightfall who harbored his own suspicions about the missing doctor, and it seemed as though it would be only a matter of time until Hyde would get to him. As usual, Jebediah's timing was uncanny. He struck with deadly fury on the day Sheriff Miller was to wed Marietta Toomsley.
Dearly beloved,
Jebediah had worshipped Marietta from afar ever since his return to Nightfall.
I do apologize for the interruption, but I must insist you stop this blissful charade immediately.
For heaven's sake, man, have you no sanctity? This is their wedding day. God has ordained that this should be an occasion for joy.
Oh, God yourself, you old soul peddler! Hi! Have you gone mad? There. Now I'm in the spirit. Sheriff Randall Miller, I'm placing you under arrest for the murder of Colonel Lithistrom and attempting to marry without a license.
You're insane!
I assure you, young lady, I am in complete control. Their foolish accusations won't stand up in any court of law. From this moment on, Sheriff Miller, I am the court of law. Thereby I find you guilty of the charges brought forth and sentence you to hang until you are buried. Proceed, Captain.
Jebediah, please! I implore you not to go through with this! I'll do anything, please!
There, my dear. You needn't worry your pretty little head off. You know I'll always see that you get whatever it is you want.
No?
As long as I get what I want first!
No, you murder! You killed them both!
I don't care what you do with this mess. You just make sure she gets delivered unharmed to my chambers.
Some say the town of Nightfall changed that day and was never the same again.
So nobody in the whole town of Nightfall stood up to Hyde and his henchmen?
No, times were tough, and most decent folks were packing to leave anyway.
What about Marietta?
Yeah, what happened to Marietta?
Well, Marietta did end up getting married. Only this time, it was to Jebediah. But Jebediah didn't anticipate that Marietta would never be able to recover from the loss of her true love, Sheriff Miller. As a result, Jebediah quickly tossed her aside like a spoiled child with a broken toy. Some said she was carrying Jebediah's child. Whether that's true or not, nobody will ever know for sure. But Marietta's death drove Hyde even more deeply into his strange experiments. Hyde was bound and determined to succeed in the art of metabolic reassembly, and in his attempt to create a superior human being, he began building an army of the undead. And although many souls have come to the town of Nightfall over the years, Dr. Hyde sees to it that nobody leaves. Alive, that is. That, my friends, is the sad story of Nightfall. Of course, there's a lot more to tell, but since our time is almost up, I'll just leave you with a little advice. Those who die a terrible death around here don't stay in the ground. So be careful.